Well, there we go. I don't know why that would switch to any other option. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Bruce McDonald, and this is the Talamanca Review. Well, the subtitle, this podcast is titled Theater of the Absurd. And that is a school of theater invented or defined by Samuel Beckett, Irish playwright. I think he got the, I'm pretty sure he got the Nobel Prize. It's a post-World War II designation for particular plays of absurdist fiction written by a number of primarily European playwrights in the late 1950s. It's also a term for the style of theater the plays represent. The plays focus largely on ideas of existentialism and express what happens when human existence lacks meaning or purpose and communication breaks down. I would call it slightly prophetic, actually. The structure of the plays is typically a round shape with the finishing point the same as the starting point. Logical construction and argument give way to irrational and illogical speech and to the ultimate conclusion, silence. All the world is a stage and we are but actors upon it. William Shakespeare. So why do I say this? The theater that we're involved in is actually very logical right now. Let's make sure I'm connected here. Now, I think I'm connected. Yeah. Sorry, I just briefly went out there because my VPN came on. I just booted up the computer before I started the podcast. So you got what the theater of the absurd is. And I mean, we're sort of living it now. Subtitle for tonight's podcast could just as easily be, I told you so. Okay? And here I'm referring to the early announcements of Trump appointments. And it is, I don't know how to describe it. It is in very many ways, I think America first is giving way to Israel first. And, but this was anticipated. This was understood that this was going to happen. There was profound Jewish backing, big money backing for Trump. I don't know why people have such difficulty seeing this, and I think the reason is there's just so much disinformation out there. So much disinformation. It's unbelievable, actually, the level of disinformation. This has always been a Jewish narrative. We've been in a Jewish narrative. We've been in a Jewish narrative since the Bank of England, since William the Orange. Somebody sent me an absolutely brilliant short clip by Christopher John Bjorkins. Those of you who know him. He writes books and he podcasts, mainly deconstructing the Kabbalah and the aims and ambitions of, I guess you could say, the Zionists. He might say the Jewish population as a whole, but I think I I think I would just limit it to the Zionists. And the parallels between Donald the Trump and William the Orange are uncanny. Okay? William the Orange was a Dutch Jew who was briefly installed on the British throne. He was referred to as the Orangeman. And there was a big massacre. I think it was Protestants massacred Catholics. And this took place on July 12, my birthday. And so I was consistently referred to by my very Catholic grandmothers as the Orangeman growing up. These things are taken very seriously in certain circles to this day, like Irish and Scottish people. You can't bring this stuff up in a pub. You'll get knifed, or you get the living shit kicked out of you. You might get killed. Okay? Before I get right into this, because I feel it lifting inside of me, I feel the butterfly wings lifting me up for my usual 1 hour soliloquy. I just want to mention something briefly, something tangential to tonight's podcast. So President Bukele of El Salvador is in Costa Rica right now. And he's been given the highest honor a visiting diplomat could be given. And I don't know how many times they've given it out, but not many. Not many. And our president in Costa Rica, President Chavez, gave a stirring speech praising what Bukele has done in El Salvador. And this goes back to my one-time listener who went by the handle of Grumblefish44. Grumble as in grumbling. And I suppose that's a reference to a classic Francis Ford Coppola movie named Rumblefish, with Matt Dillon and Mickey Rourke and a number of other great young actors. And I did a show on Bukele, and I happened to mention my views about him one time on Into the Microcosm, and a gentleman by the name of Billy Ray Valentine found them extremely offensive. You know, they felt that Bukele was violating human rights. This is so symptomatic of the cognitive deficiencies that are plaguing the West now. I call it entitlement consciousness. I guess it's a derivative of Jordan Peterson's virtue signaling or whatever, but I don't think the virtue signaling really suffices. It's a cognitive impairment, and I'll explain logically why it's a cognitive impairment. Before you can create a culture, before you can create a society, before you can promote values, you have to simply survive. And to some people, it seems as though that was done decades ago and nobody worries about basic survival anymore. In many ways, it's harder to survive now in the modern cities and the Western economies and make your bills. And it's hard to do just solo by yourself. You know, God help you if you're trying to raise 2 or 3 kids. It's almost impossible. My son talks about this all the time. Well, not all the time, but it comes up. Not a lot of Gen Zs having kids and starting families unless there's big money in the family. But even that aside, you know, between his mom and I, there's more than enough money in our family to help him buy a house and everything, but he just doesn't want it. It's a matter of pride. He wants to do it, and I get it. Right? I get it completely. It's very easy to have ideals like that like Bukele is violating human rights when you don't live in the shit. You're not living in El Salvador. You didn't live what they lived through. They went through a living hell. Their country literally got taken over by two gangs. Marisalva 13 and another one, I forget what the name of it was. And it is true, I've done more research since, and it is true that Marisalva did originate in Los Angeles, and it did get pushed back to, it did take over El Salvador as a result of deportations. Originally, I said that wasn't true, but it is true. And I learned that watching the Chris Moritz podcast on Tucker Carlson, the guy who wrote the book called The Fowl of California. The town where I sometimes go to do my grocery shopping, I didn't go there today. There's two towns I can go to. One is called Bataan, and it's the closest. And the other is called Siquiris, and it's about, I don't know, about 35, 40 minutes away, like door to door. And 15 or 20 of those minutes is just getting down the mountain, because it's a very slow, winding dirt road in the mountains. But Bataan has a population of about 15,000 people. Let me just... Yep. This is the district or the canton my wife is a counselor in, by the way. Was created in the 25th of June, 1969. The 2011 census has it at 16,532 people. I don't think it's gone up much from that, and I'll tell you why. The murder rate is so high that I would say that it is probably somewhere between 15 and 20,000 people. And there's reasons why it's a center for the drug trade. I won't get into that. I know it from living here, and I don't want to create problems for myself, so I'll just not talk about that. But there are murders every day. Sometimes multiple murders in a day. I hear news every month that is like horror story stuff. Right? Like entire families murdered. Grandparents, husband, wife, kids, babies, everything. Entire families murdered. Okay? And it's gotten a lot worse and a lot darker just in the 8 years I've been here. They never used to kill families. And about 6 weeks or 2 months ago, I noticed a very curious law passed. I noticed these things even before my wife. You know news is big when you see it reported outside of Costa Rica, but it's about Costa Rica. Now, Costa Rica is famous for its pacifism. It disbanded its army in 1948. It's one of two countries in the world that doesn't have a standing army. The other one, I think, is Switzerland. Or it might be Switzerland and Costa Rica were the only two countries who abstained from World War II, didn't take a side, stayed out of it. The law here is ridiculously liberal. Okay? Now, I'll tell it from my perspective so you don't think I'm being prejudicial. I had a nephew in my family. He got murdered 4 years ago. His name was Joseph. His mother lives up here now. It's my wife's sister, obviously, if he was my nephew. Joseph had like a dozen bodies on him. At 23, 24, he'd already killed 12 or 14 men. Nobody knew for sure. It was all just rumors. He was a killer, through and through. Culturally, he went through all of the rites of passage of a Costa Rican. He attended birthday parties, and when you would meet him in a family capacity, he's just a completely normal guy. And they set him up for a murder. He got set up for a murder. But anyways, let me just tell you. So he got arrested for an absolutely heinous crime. I won't even tell you the details, but people died. Absolutely heinous crime. And when they were looking for him, the only time the cops over here get tough is when they want to catch someone and get them off the street. And that's not all that often. I mean, there's people they've been looking for. As I said, the DEA has only ever issued 2 warrants for Costa Rican nationals, and both of the 2 warrants are for guys that both lived on my mountain. And I know both of them. One's dead now, and the other one I know, and there's an outstanding warrant for him. This is my life over here. Like, I'm not making this up. It's like Narcos season 5. And it's just weird. So Joseph, when they were looking for Joseph, he went into hiding. And the head of the national police let it be known that our community up here and my wife's family would be rousted every other day. Like the jackboots would come up here and kick in doors and turn over furniture and smack people around, including me. Okay? And at the time, I didn't have a proper visa. And so they probably would have deported me. And they only do stuff like that when a family is not cooperating and turning someone over who is very heinous, very criminal. So Joseph did the right thing and he turned himself in. Now, he never should have got out. Okay? Never should have got out. Because the crimes that he was charged with were extremely heinous. And he was out the next day with an ankle bracelet. That's how liberal the law is over here. He was going to house parties. He was doing all kinds of stuff with the ankle bracelet on. Smoking his weed, drinking his beer. Like some cholo gangster in East LA. And that's what I mean by how liberal the law is over here. It's just ridiculous, and it has to stop. So about a month and a half ago, the president of Costa Rica passed a law making it legal for the police to carry and use automatic weapons, machine guns. And this is huge for Costa Rica because it's always been a pacifist country. But what has completely corrupted it is the drug money and the Sinaloa cartel. It just is what it is, okay? And I also predicted this was going to happen. That when Trump got in, there was going to be a huge cleanup and they were going to go after the cartels too. Now here is the end of my family segue. Now I'm going to get to the heart of tonight's podcast, Theater of the Absurd. Okay, 19 minutes in. Is it 19? Yeah, 19 minutes in. Sip of coffee because I have to concentrate now and I might not get another opportunity to take a coffee. There's one other thing I'd like to say before I get into this. This is a relatively small and very intimate podcast. I know dozens of you personally and speak to you offline. Okay? Anyone is welcome to schedule a show with me to talk about, debate, or contradict anything I've said. If you correct something in the comments, and I'll come across it in the comments, verify the correction, and go, yeah, that's right. It's happened a number of times. There was one really weird one. What was it? I forget what it was. But I mean, just for example, it was about me saying something wrong about photosynthesis and how chloroplast works. Completely unrelated to world events, but I was in fact wrong, and I said, yeah, thanks for the correction. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. Okay? So feel free to add your corrections in the comments and stuff. But if you're going to challenge the entire premise of this podcast because I assert the reality of the reptilians, I'm going to demand you come on the podcast on camera and give everybody your position. Manny, I'm speaking to you. I'm calling you out the same way I called out Grumblefish44. It's all fine and dandy to be a big-time pseudo-podcaster throwing caustic comments into the chat, which I didn't see till I went back and looked at it last night. You got something to say, this is an open forum. You have my email. I've received numerous emails. Okay? I don't know what more I can do for you. Read the Anurag Sagar, the introductory chapter by Kabir written in 500 years ago. Just Google Buddha and the Naga and read all the sutras pertaining to the Naga, the shape-shifting reptilians Buddha documented 2,500 years ago. Okay? They're largely a spiritual phenomenon, but spiritual is an amorphous word, so I use more specific language and I say they're an astral phenomenon, which is the first non-material plane humans engage and the place most people go to when they dream. The reptilians are real. They're actually running the planet now, in my opinion. I understand that you find that difficult to believe. You've come to believe that this is a CIA-invented idea to pollute the discourse space, to misdirect people. I don't see how even believing in reptilians, my podcast is anything of a misdirection. I'm the only guy out there saying that everything's been going on for the last 5 years has all been about the third temple. And let me take my moment of shameful pride. I fucking told you. Trump's in and you can already hear the bricks being ordered for that temple. Okay? So I don't see how my cognition and my perception is anything but a bullseye, because nobody's been talking about what I've been talking about, and it's all coming true. So either I'm a magi, a prophet, or a logical thinker who just deconstructed things, saw what their plan was, and predicted the outcome. And if you took the time to read my books, like The Light of Darkness, which basically documents the beginning of the Babylonian system, which begins with the Bank of England, and brings us right up to the time we're in now, where we're completely controlled by institutions which have no human accountability and which have become completely satanic. And I call it incidentally satanic, because the people doing the satanic stuff are not doing it from a commitment to a satanic principle. They're doing it because the institutions mandate it. And this has all been set up by a single mindset, and that mindset is reptilian. And the most incarnate form of reptilian consciousness on the planet is Jewish. There, I said it out loud for the first time. It's that simple. However, Trump is not a reptilian. He's not. He's something else. I can't really tell you I know what he is, but I'm not going to say it on air right now. But he's not a reptilian. He's working with them, but he's not one of them. And this is why I think everything is leading to an end. And it has to lead to this end. And everybody's been working together to get to this point if you study it closely. So the left was a Jewish agenda to make America so unstable that we would swing to Donald Trump, who there hasn't been a sweep like this in an American election in a century. Right? The Congress, the Senate, the executive office, they got everything. The governor's offices in the state elections all went Republican. There's never been a sweep like this. I don't know how long. It's never been done in American politics. And it's never been done where a president was in for a term, out for a term, and back in. And it's largely due to Jewish manipulation through money and, quite frankly, black magic, which I detail in The Light of Darkness. So the world I write about in my books, and I get into more detail of it, into it in The Devil in Us, and you should read those books, Manny. You might learn something, and right now, you're fucking stupid. And that's another thing I do on the Telemancer Review, and I can get away with it because I don't live off this review. I don't even take any donations. I do it because it needs to be done. So when a fucking idiot comes into my space, I call him out. But I'm going to give you the dignity of coming on, looking me in the eyes through camera and trying to prove I'm wrong. How many podcasters do that, Manny? Have your balls dropped yet? Are you over 14? All right? So, this is the world we live in. And they're all working together. Okay? Now, you have to be careful here. And part of the Jewish plan is to destroy Edom, and we're Edom. Edom and Amalek. And that's us, the descendants of Rome, the modern manifestation. America and Britain are the modern manifestations of Rome. And it's bizarre that the Jews want to destroy those two countries, because it's got to be the greatest example in history of keeping your friends close and your enemies closer if it really is the Jewish intent to destroy these countries. Now, they say God's going to do it, but remember, when Jews say God, they mean them. I've already explained all this. Okay? And they're not doing that in an egotistical way. It's how they understand God, because God, I'm not going to get into it. So all of this is being done intentionally. The moment they nominated Harris, I just knew in my gut, this is a laydown. They don't even want to win. They're like a caddy. They're literally teeing the ball for Trump to drive on the first hole of a game of golf. That's what nominating Kamala Harris meant to me. The Democrats could have easily won this election, but they had to dig in deep. They had to find somebody that they really believed in. They had to find a Kennedy-type personality, not Gavin Newsom, but somebody like that in their late 40s, early 50s, a fresh young voice with no dirt on them. Say the right things, do the right things. They would have beat Trump easily. Okay? Why didn't they do that? Because they're all in on it. Okay? It's the theater of the absurd. They're all in on it. Obama, Clinton, Trump, they're all in on it. Okay? The reason they go through the theater of the elections is so that they can say that you were told. So that if you and what the Jews are very good at, they're stowaways. A stowaway is somebody who sneaks onto a ship illegally and hides out in the cargo bay, and when the ship is too far away from port, turn back, they come up and say, hey, by the way, I'm a stowaway here. And then the ship's captain puts them in a bunk and they feed them. And then they let the authorities in whatever country they're landing in deal with the stowaway. Or sometimes they just let them go when they get there, the merchant marines. I guess they have a sympathy for them. Now, the Jews have never had the military force to defend themselves. They talk tough, but they can't. Okay? If Syria, Iran, all these countries around there decided to take them out, they'd take them out. Probably Israel could take a lot of them with them, probably some dirty nukes and stuff like that, and Israel would do that. But the collective Arab consciousness is very, it's almost like it's okay with that. Okay? It's almost like it's okay with that, so they would have done it. So everybody's been working to the same end. This has been a giant piece of theater right from the beginning, okay? There's no other way to see this. Now, do I want to subscribe? Yeah, okay. Okay, so now I want to briefly read to you, if it's free. I think it's free, yeah. just how absurd this alternative media has become. Okay? So Kerry Cassidy's got a blog post up now. Well, it's November 6th. And I just became aware of it today. But the day before the election, I was watching an interview with her on, I don't know, somebody sent it to me on BitChute, like Patriot News, the X22 report or something like that. And Kerry was prognosticating that Trump was going to lose and the election was rigged. Okay? This is like the day before the election, or 2-3 days before the election. Now, 2 days after the election, November 6th, she comes out with an article, Why Trump Won. Illuminati, China, and the aliens who are behind them. Okay? So getting back to you, Manny. Are there people out there using extraterrestrials and reptilians as a distraction? Yeah. Here's one right here. Kerry Cassidy. So your instincts are right. I'm just not one of them. And if you keep your shit up and you don't come on air to debate me, I'm going to come to the conclusion that you're somebody's dog, and I'm going to kick you out of chat, and you're going to leave this family, this Talamanca Review family, because I don't want any shit here. I'm a harder hard ass than Trump. Believe it. Okay? So let's look at this bullshit. And I'm going to read this, and I don't often read articles, but this is so fucking ludicrous. And by the way, Kerry Cassidy's Jewish. Okay? Several years ago, a source said the Chinese are dealing with the new kids on the block, and no one likes them. Later, a source said that the Chinese were being backed by an alien group that wants them to rule the world. The Biden show and Kamala are backed by the CCP. This is known and not a secret. John Radcliffe, the DNI during the earlier Trump administration, reported to Congress that the evidence the intel agency had was that the 2020 election was controlled and stolen by the CCP along with other partners, the Vatican, Italian satellites, and MI6, according to Juan Savin. Allegedly, this is John F. Kennedy Jr., still alive, never died in that plane crash. You're really going into La La Land when you're going into Kerry's world, okay? Now, I used to love Project Camelot, but they only worked when they were together. Bill, the guy with the master's degrees in physics and math, and Kerry, the flaky psychic with high estrogen levels. But somehow the two of them balanced each other, and the interviews were brilliant. She's been a complete disaster since she went on her own. But she makes her living at it, and like every other schlep who has to sing for their supper, she'll put out shit or she'll put out occasionally correct information just so long as people keep reading and she gets paid. And that's why I don't take money on the Talamanca Review. I want a certain degree of purity to what I do. I want it to be of genuine spiritual service to people. If you haven't guessed yet, tonight's show is a political show. Sometimes I go spiritual, sometimes I go political. Tonight's show is a political show. Okay? Theater of the absurd. Recently, I was told that the Illuminati had changed sides. Well, who the fuck told you that, Kerry? The same people that told you the election was going to get stolen? I mean, why don't you just start fucking thinking for yourself and just looking at everything that's going on in front of you and starting to put it together? Okay? It's the fucking Jews. How hard is this to figure out? Are aliens a part of the human? Are we alien controlled? Absolutely. Why do the aliens not overtly declare themselves? Because if they did, then other aliens would have the right to come into this space by the law of equanimity and universal balance and challenge their authority and dominion here. However, we're going to lose that equanimity and that sort of Palladian Nordic support if we go to globalization under Noahide law and the Third Temple. The unification of the planet under that system will lawfully, by divine law, will lawfully prevent any positive ETs from coming in and helping us. How do ETs interfere in human life? It's usually psychic. Okay? Most people, if they were aware of it at all, would perceive it as an angel or a demon, hence the religious narrative. But it's all ET. Okay? Now, demons do exist. They're more responsible for, like, you know, madness and the kind of possession we see the Catholics dealing with. That really is a demonic possession. And those are old astral spirits that have been around here forever. And whatever they are, they're not fallen angels, because I debunked that myth in The Devil in Us. But they're very old spirits, and they're much more powerful than what you would call a dead human being. Okay? Much more powerful. Whether they're the spirit bodies of Nephilim that were once physical on this planet, I don't know. Nor do I care to know. I just know they exist. But they work in a function here now, and they've always worked in a function here. And by that I mean they're part of the cosmic theater. They're part of the cosmic order down here. Okay? They have decided to back the U.S., and we're going to give them a tremendous amount of money. This is the Illuminati Kerry's talking about. They found out that China and the ETs behind China would decimate them. We're not on their side. So they've changed sides. This just happened in the past 6 months. Gee, Kerry, thanks. As a result, are you going to be at the animal slaughters at the new Temple of Solomon, Kerry? Are you going to go tell us about the aliens there? As a result, they are now backing Trump and the U.S. against this more diabolical enemy that is backing the Chinese. The Chinese in the past have always been backed by the Draco and reptilians. However, now this new group hacking China is at odds with the reptilians, Draco, and Greys. My source would not tell me who the new guys are, but her intuition says they are the spider beings. Update, they are not spider beings according to recent source. Live updates to her blog. Back from the times of Angkor Wat. And the spider beings are real too, by the way. Okay? I don't know how much more of this I want to read. Okay. Hang on a sec here. So, where the hell is Skype? Oh, it won't come up. So it's all about the third temple. And that's what we're doing now. And the third temple will not benefit us. Not us normal human beings, okay? It will have absolutely no benefit for us. Now, oh, come on, man. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. So this whole thing has been leading to this. It's always been leading to this. No. They have. I was asked to go to chat, and I'm here now. Okay. There is a rumor that there's a version of the temple built underground. I first came across this a number of years ago, and that they are actually doing the rituals. But you have to understand that the Holy of Holies has to be built in a certain geographic space above ground. Okay? If there is a version of the temple underground, it's just methadone to get them through till they get back to the Mexican brown above ground, the pure heroin, to complete my drug metaphor. And it's not the best of metaphors, I'll agree, okay? But it has not been built, okay? And it doesn't represent their... The whole point of the temple is the whole world has to know it's up. That's the whole point of the third temple, okay? And this will be the most horrible and terrible of all the temples. Okay? Absolutely will be the most horrible and terrible of all the temples. If the first one even existed. I'm not sure it did. Jordan Maxwell didn't think it literally existed, and he didn't think Solomon literally existed. Okay? And it's very interesting because Jordan Maxwell was generally bang on with his research. The whole Jewish canon is just a bunch of nonsense gobbled together from various cultures presenting itself as some pseudo-holy book. Okay? What the Temple of Solomon represents in our time is the realization of a migration back to a homeland and the attempt to take control of the world by a group of people. Now, they're not the first, and they won't be the last. Okay, so it's, I'm dealing with the forces that I'm dealing with while I'm alive. Am I saying that the Jews are the only people who've ever done this? Absolutely not. Genghis Khan tried to do it. Alexander the Great tried to do it. The Greeks, the Mongols. Okay? America, in its own way, has been trying to take over the world since the Berlin Wall came down in 89-90 and failed miserably and created much calamity and death. Okay? But what makes the Jewish version different is they've done it as stowaways. Okay? And it's very interesting the way that they've done it. And it's very interesting the way they've come to control American politics. There will come a day where I can't do these podcasts. This might be the last week or two where I can even talk about these topics in this detail. They're going to start cracking down on anti-Semitism big time. Now, I don't consider myself an anti-Semite, and I don't think anybody going through the library of videos on the Talamanca Review would come to the conclusion I'm an anti-Semite. A specially appointed rabbinical council of sub-rabbis to the formal Sanhedrin could sit down and watch 100 hours of the Talamanca Review and go, the guy's not an anti-Semite. He's actually deeply considering these issues. But they're going to crack down big time, man. I mean, all you got to do is listen to what these appointees are saying. Okay? But there's something else about the temple. There's something deeper, much deeper about the temple, and it has to do with an imbalance that's been in the world for 2,000 years. And it has to do with what the temple does. It has to do with magic, and it has to deal with opening doors to the other side and letting things in. Okay? So I'm gonna go over some stuff. I think I've briefly gone over these concepts before on the Talamanca Review, but I'm going to revisit them, okay? Let's deal with Palo Mayombe because that's the one I know the best. But they're all basically the same. When you initiate into Palo Mayombe, you get what are called urns. They're like clay pots. They can really be anything. You can go buy them at Home Hardware. There's nothing special or magical about the pots. It's not as intricate as the cutting of the stones for the Temple of Solomon. I can't tell you exactly what goes into the pot because I promised I wouldn't do that when I read the material. Okay, so it's very rare that an initiate gets to read this material. A non-initiate gets to read this material. Hey, buddy. And I got to read the material. And I promised the person who gave it to me to read that I would just use it for the light of darkness and help me under... Buddy, I'm podcasting, eh? Look at this guy. And that... I would use it to understand the basic principles and then apply it to a wider thesis, which is what I did in that book, The Light of Darkness. Available in audio, and I will take a little bit of money for that. Or if you don't have money, I'll give it to you for free, though, okay? If you want the book, send me an email at seenthattinker@gmail, at protonmail, at Yahoo. Pick one. Just remember Seen That Tinker. And ask for the book, and I'll send it to you, okay? And it's a great reading, by the way. I've given it out to a few people in the last week, and most people, they binge it like a really good Netflix series. They call me back in a day and they say, I'm done. I said, you're done? It was like 8.5 hours of audio. Yeah, I couldn't stop, man. So it's good. So one of the things that goes into the urn is your blood. So you have to cut yourself, and your blood, the tata, or the person who is going to control the spirit or spirits, there can be more than one, associated with that urn. Okay? Your blood has to go into it. And it mixes with the other stuff in that urn. And some of these urns are hundreds of years old, passed from tata to tata. I'll let you figure that out. I'm not going to say anything more. Sometimes I just, as much as I want to say everything, sometimes it's just not prudent to say everything. Like if you knew how to build a nuclear bomb, would you say it on a podcast clearly and articulately so somebody with even an undergraduate degree in physics might be able to build one? No. And it's the same thing with magic, okay? So that's how you get in. And your power as a tata is determined by how many urns you have. But the more urns you have, the more mouths you have to feed. Okay? And they have to be fed. And there's many ways, and you have to let them use you from time to time, the spirits. You have to let them come into you, and, they want to drink some alcohol, they want to smoke a cigar, and they come right into your body and share your body with you. But unlike a possession, they leave. Okay? But those spirits are associated with the urn. You're associated with the urn through your blood. And that goes on. Now, to blood out or to give up the urns, a tata can die, and his urns can be taken over by another practitioner in the same house the tata was leading. So you'll generally have houses of initiates, okay? And there's like dozens and dozens and dozens of these things in Los Angeles. Palo Mayombe's everywhere in Los Angeles, okay? It's got to be one of the most black magic cities on the planet. You always know when there's a lot of magic around because poverty follows, okay? God brings prosperity, black magic brings poverty, okay? Now, if you decide, like, I don't want to be a Palo Mayombe Tata anymore, I don't want to work with these spirits anymore, you have to find somebody to take your spirits over for you. You have to find somebody to take your urns. Okay? And then that person bloods into the urn, and then your connection with the spirits you are working with is broken. So, the Temple of Solomon and the blood sacrifices that went on there are like that, exponentially bigger than the example I just gave you, and affecting every, I don't know what the initiation process is for a Jew. Like for a Catholic, it's confirmation, right? It's baptism, first communion, first confession, and then confirmation. I don't know what it is for a Jew, but once you're a Jew, it might be the bar mitzvah. I don't know. But I think the bar mitzvah just means your ascension into adulthood. The destruction of that temple in 72 AD had the same effect on the Jews for the last 2,000 years that the spirits in an urn would have on a Tata practitioner if the Tata did not blood out, did not give the urns to another Tata practitioner, but stopped doing magic, stopped communicating with the spirits, and most importantly, stopped feeding them and stopped giving them, let's say, treats like dog treats. Okay? You would have huge problems. You wouldn't sleep well. Your dreams would be horrible. All the people around you would be having accidents, car accidents, falling into manholes. All this weird shit happens. And that's black magic. Okay? By the way, it's my opinion, and I've never told him this, but it's my opinion that Doc McCarran was attacked by black magic. That has the weirdness of what happened to him, has all the hallmarks of black magic, but certain problems he has, substance abuse problems, did not help him at all. That weakens you to the black magic. It takes you out of a state of grace. If you're in a state of grace, the black magic can't harm you. You could have the most powerful sorcerers in the world put the most powerful demons on you, and if you're in a state of grace, if you have the God vibration in you, they can't hurt you. Now, in a curse, the demons will make one run at you, and if you're in a state of grace, you survived. A more powerful thing to do is to hex somebody. And a hex is where the demon will hang around for weeks and sometimes even months, waiting for you to fall out of grace. One little sin, and then boom, discharge whatever it was there they were sent there to discharge. But when you listen to these wizards talk about it, it's the same thing as Paolo Mayombe. So this is, of course, why there's been so much bloodletting and blood ritual in Judaica. Okay? And they don't want, the reason we haven't been able to prove it is we don't live in a world that can prove black magic. How would you prove that in a superior court in Los Angeles? What judge would hear it? What evidence would qualify? But when you know, you know. Okay? It's the same thing with the reptilians. When you know, you know. You can't prove it to somebody else. They have to make the journey to understanding it, just like I can't prove Paolo Mayombe works to somebody who doesn't understand it. They have to. Well, I might be able to if I had somebody put a curse on them, But I would not go to those lengths to prove that Paolo Mayombe is real to somebody. So this is an incredible time, the rebuilding of the temple, and it has to be built above ground. Okay? And it's coming. And that's why they're doing the rituals. And whatever they have going on underground, that's just the methadone. Okay? And the blood work has been done to appease what the Jews work with since the destruction of the temple. The moral of the story is never get into blood work as a spiritual practice. Never, ever, ever. You will fuck yourself up. You will fuck your children up. You will fuck your ancestors up until somebody breaks the curse. Okay? And it is the religion of people who love to hate, and it is the religion of people who love power. The blood religions. And Christianity is a variant of the blood religion, taking the Catholic host, and sometimes in some churches the wine, as a substitute for the body and blood of Christ. So you're still you're kind of weaning yourself off of blood work. So it's all reptilian ritual. That's what it is. It's all reptilian ritual. Okay? It's a theater of the absurd. And the left and the right have worked together to get us to this point with Donald Trump. Now, they haven't really worked together, but an overseeing body of human beings that works with both sides, donates to both sides, pays both sides, has been working to this outcome. Okay? So now you're going to start to see a lot of sacrifice. You're going to see a lot of heads roll. You wanted heads to roll? Heads are going to roll. Right? Michael Yon, the Green Beret, wrote a post today saying that if Trump doesn't immediately shut down the refugee hosting centers in the Darien Gap, he's not serious about stopping immigration. I agree with Michael Yon completely. There's a litmus test right there. Okay? And who's piping up all these refugees? The Zionists. Okay? Who was backing the Democratic Party in this election? The Zionists. Who was backing Trump? The Zionists. So why do this? Why write and direct the theater of the absurd? Why go through all of this? Energy harvesting, psychic energy, hope, despair, elation. That's why. Because that goes into the magic too. That's enough for tonight. I'm Bruce McDonald, and this has been